Hello. Okay, for my Feature Friday, we're going to talk about one of my most anticipated books of the year. So, that book is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This cover is gorgeous. So she wrote Gods of Jade and Shadow last year, which I loved, and I loved the fairy tale-esque aspect of it. And so, like I said, I was already going to read her next book. And I need to go to her backlist as well, because everything sounds really interesting and might be right up my alley. But then when I saw that this one was going to be in Gothic, I was 100% in. So she's a socialite, and you meet her coming out of a costume party, and she's like getting into a cab with her gentleman friend, and she enjoys flitting from party to party. She is really it's set in the 50s, and she's really intelligent and just can't stick to one thing. She's interested in so many things, and she's trying to get her dad to agree to is it a graduate program? Basically, she's interested in doing an anthropology course, and she's already studied a bunch of other things, so her family's kind of just like, you need to settle down. And they don't think she should settle down with the guy that she's leaving this party with, but they think that that's what she needs to focus on. So she gets called out of this party early, and she has to go home. And her dad's in the study, and he's like, okay, so hold on, I think that this fan is loud. It hopefully will be better now. I forgot to think about the fan. Anyway, so she gets out of this party, and she goes to her dad's study. This is a lot of talk to lead up to the good bits. I'm sorry. I'm so excited about this book. And he's like, okay, so your cousin who got married recently, I got a kind of concerning letter from her, and I'm gonna need you to go check it out. And so her cousin had married like this British aristocrat, I think in Mexico, and had kind of gone off to this country estate. We love a country estate. So she'd gone off, and this letter, I don't remember what in it was concerning. What is going on? So they're gonna send Noemi. And the bribe is she takes care of this. She settles it, gets it figured out satisfactorily. To satisfaction. She gets to study anthropology. So she goes to this remote house on a hill. It's up like a mountain hill. It's separated from the town. They talk about like when it rains being like dangerous and kind of like off limits. What's the name of the house? Because of course it's a Gothic, so of course the house has a name. High Place. So pretty standard, but that's okay. So she goes to High Place, and she meets Francis, who is the younger cousin of her cousin's husband. And Francis's mother is kind of like the housekeeper role. So she's like what's her name in Rebecca? I got lots of Daphne du Maurier vibes from this, in the best possible way. Like, it was a mix of Rebecca and My Cousin Rachel, both of which are my two favorites from her. So like we get Rebecca from like the housekeeper that's like just kind of always in your business and has a lot of family investment and maybe secrets and whatnot. And then you get My Cousin Rachel in that, like, are you being like, is she being poisoned? Is there romantic sexual tension maybe going on where there should or shouldn't be? Like, what is truth and what is reality? And how does that fit with what we think we know? It's not like a note for note retelling by any means, don't get me wrong there. Because the ending veers off pretty significantly from from those expectations if you're going in expecting like a Rebecca ending or a My Cousin Rachel ending. But it was the same kind. My Cousin Rachel gave me some of the most like anxious tension from a book that I can remember. I need to go back and read it, and I need to watch the movie because I still haven't seen it. But anyway, so I was getting that from this. I was getting a little bit of the yellow wallpaper. There's the first kind of, it wasn't as scary as I thought it was gonna be. It wasn't like the haunting, I'm gonna mess this up again. I think I've talked about this before. So there's the Shirley Jackson novel, and then there's this board game. And I always confuse the two. So The Haunting of Hill House, I believe, is the Shirley Jackson, because that would be a proper noun. Hill House is the name of the house, and The Haunting of House on the Hill or whatever would be the board game, because that's more generic and a direct allusion to Hill House. Anyway, that. It's not like a full haunting like that by any means, but you also get some of that too, because the house does play into it. There's so much going on with this book. Also, it's only like 300 pages. She accomplishes so much in so little space. Now, I will give some like definite trigger warnings for things like sexual assault and potential attempted rape. So go in knowing that. But, and I spent a lot of time with that, wondering if, because I've read a lot of books that have kind of like a sexual assault angle to them this year, and it's just, maybe I probably have a lot in the past. I've just been a lot more aware of it this year. And I'm like, oh, how do I feel about that? And I think that in this book, it is always being done, it's not gratuitous, right? Like, it's not being done for shock value. It's making really specific points, excuse me, about both women at that time and the cultural landscape of that time. Let me get a drink of water real quick. Thematically, there's a lot going on with this book in a really, really wonderful way. I think it manages to take all of the things I love about Gothic literature, the creepiness, the uncertainty, that break with reality and the unknown, and it explores it through the lens of a very specific cultural moment. But like, you've got this British family in Mexico in this old mining town. So it's basically a deserted mining town. So the mine dried up, or I don't remember exactly. There's a lot that's going on with the mine, but this family had taken advantage of the people of this town, and they felt entitled to that. And it was left kind of decimated in the wake of that. But these people are still living in this high manor house, overseeing everything, feeling superior to everything. There's discussion of eugenics, and all of that twistedness and ugliness just fits so well with the Gothic literature angle. It takes these themes of this genre and elevates them to explore really real, ugly truths and ideas. So it's not a personification. I mean, it's a somewhat personification, but it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost a conjuring of this evilness and the evilness of these mindsets into a really tangible form. So this book, I don't know, I was a little nervous going in because I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed with Catherine House, which was my other big Gothic expectation novel. And I mean, I've talked about that book already. I still really enjoyed it and thought that there was a lot to dig into there, but it didn't quite get there for me. At the end of this book, I did have questions on whether, because the minute you start giving answers, it's hard in these narratives because do those answers line up? Like in not Turn of the Screw, the Ruth Ware. I didn't think that that payoff of that novel matched up with the setup at all. Like, I didn't think it earned it. This one was hard because I'm not sure. Like, I loved the book. It was a 5-star read for me, but the end gave me a lot to think about. It ramped up very quickly. It got real intense and extreme, and I was left with a lot to kind of unpack. But it, like, once you start getting answers, you're left with those answers, right? Like, you have to contend with what that means for the rest of the novel. I think there was only one moment that I kind of didn't get potentially an answer to, and I think I just missed it. But early, because there's a graveyard on the property, because of course there is. And there's a scene where Noemi is kind of like wandering the graveyard a little bit, and she sees like a potentially shrouded figure kind of scuttling around in the fog in that perfect kind of creepy way. And I don't remember if we really get an answer to that moment. But there are a lot of answers, and there's a lot of I want to be clear that the end gets really intense. There is some really intense, gross imagery. I would not eat while reading the end of this novel. Just maybe don't do that. But it was really good. I guess I don't really have like a button to this other than, yeah, like the atmosphere was fantastic. That atmosphere was used to explore really great ideas. Well, not great ideas. Eugenics is not a great idea, but like just kind of where that mindset was. The characters were really interesting, and there was evil in that house. And that evil was connected to an entity of some kind. So my alarm went off on my phone, and I like kept talking like it was still recording, and it wasn't. So I'm gonna have to try and summarize some of my thoughts, I guess, because I was just kind of babbling. To reiterate, where it kind of, you have to play with it, is the book explores a lot of like really awful ideas and a lot of evil ideas. And the ideas kind of exist, like eugenics, right? Like exist on this kind of higher thing. So when this evil, and eugenics is just like one specific example of the evil that is in the book. And not like even, like, it's just like it's talked about over dinner very early on, right? Like this idea is brought up. So you've got this evil that then has to be embodied in a way plot-wise, right? Like, so whatever that evil manifests itself as within the narrative to kind of embody this. So whether that moment, that person, that place, the combination of all, what have you, whatever that becomes, it then becomes the living or sentient or whatever symbolic embodiment of that evil. And then you have to grapple with whether that succeeds and whether that moment or person or place or symbolism is enough to kind of reckon with that. And because this narrative moves so fast, that's a lot of what I was thinking at the end. I was like, okay, is this enough for everything that's been set up? Like, how does this pay off for everything that we've just gone through, for all of this paranoia and evil and yeah. I think it succeeds, but I think that the ending moves very quick. And some of the answers, it's hard when you like have to start pinning answers down, like I said, or maybe said. I don't know when it stopped recording. Like when you have to start moving from just like the amorphous evil to the specific evil and how that works, that's when it starts getting really hard. And I think that this definitely worked. But I don't know if it was what I was expecting, if that makes sense. And I could see people having trouble with it because there is a lot of really disturbing imagery at the end that I had to really kind of like ask myself, has this moment been earned by everything else? And I think yes, because I think she's making very specific points. And it's all, the groundwork has been laid in the narrative, but it is violent and disturbing. So know that going in. But it's really good. It's a really good book. It's a really good horror book. And that's what the author wants it to be judged as, right? Like as a Gothic, as a horror, and it succeeds at that. And like I said, it takes all of the best parts of the genre. It's all there. And then the themes it's exploring just heighten all of that. It adds extra weight, extra stakes. It makes everything richer. It just is really good. I really loved this book. I'm very glad I really